Giant corporations and big banks put forced arbitration clauses in the fine print in their contracts. And this means that someone who gets cheated by them can't go to court. Instead, they have to go to a secret tribunal where, every year, millions of people who get cheated just lose out. No judge, no written opinion, no appeal. Just an order from someone who gets paid by the case and who may never get picked to arbitrate again if they rule for the consumer too many times. But there's another problem with forced arbitration. Let's say I open a checking account with Wells Fargo, and I signed a contract with no mandatory arbitration clause. Soon after, my hypothetical Wells banker cheated me out of $30, and he just took it out of my account, put it in his own. When I called, Wells said, "Yeah, that's our policy. Too bad for you." Professor Gillis, you're a nationally recognized expert on mandatory arbitration clauses, but let me ask you, I'm mad, no arbitration clause here. Would I likely find a lawyer, pay the filing fees, and go to court to recover $30?
No, it really wouldn't be worth it.
Okay, but how about if I had a mandatory arbitration clause? Professor Zwicky says that these clauses are efficient. So, Professor Gillis, would I or would most people go to the trouble of figuring out how to file an arbitration complaint, to fill out the forms, to collect the paperwork, to take off work, and to show up for an arbitration hearing for $30?
Nope, it's still not worth it.
Still not worth it. Okay, so most people are not going to follow through with a complex procedure to collect $30, arbitration clause or no. But let's say that Wells Fargo cheated half its customers. That would be about 35 million people, exactly the same way they cheated me. Professor Gillis, if Wells did not put a mandatory arbitration clause somewhere in the fine print, would there be a way for 35 million Wells customers to sue the company together, cheaply and efficiently?
Yes, it's called a class action.
That's right. Tell us a little about how class action
Well, the policy at the core of the class action device is precisely this, to aggregate claims that on their own are too small to bring individually, whether in court or in an arbitration, and to pool resources, right? To pool the consumer's resources so that they can more efficiently litigate against a common and usually more well-resourced adversary.
So the people get some redress on their $30. Mm-hmm. And what effect does it have on Wells?
Well, traditionally, hypothetically, it should deter Wells from engaging in misconduct in the future.
Okay, so now let's ask about the reverse. If Wells did put a mandatory arbitration clause somewhere in the fine print, is there a way for 35 million Wells customers who were cheated to sue the company together, cheaply and efficiently?
No. And this is exactly what we're talking about. These class-banning arbitration clauses deny consumers the ability to band together, to pool their resources, to be able to level the playing field so that they could adjudicate their claims against a company as big and well-resourced as Wells Fargo.
And what kind of impact does that have on Wells Fargo?
Well, if I'm Wells Fargo, I can basically do whatever I want, right? $30 here, $30, 35 million times over. The only thing you have to fear is detection by a public enforcer, but, public enforcers' budgets can't monitor every single transaction in the marketplace, so no deterrence.
So think about this. Because of mandatory arbitration, Wells Fargo could openly cheat 35 million customers, and except for a few people who one at a time go to arbitration, Wells would just keep the money. And in my example, that would be well over $1 billion free and clear for our hypothetical friends at Wells. Big banks, giant corporations, and groups like the Chamber of Commerce say that forced arbitration is good for consumers because it is fair and efficient. There is nothing fair and efficient about arbitration. It is a very clever way that very clever lawyers for very big corporations and very big banks dreamed up to be able to keep customers from having any effective power when those big corporations or those big banks cheat their customers. Now, it's not shocking that big corporations continue to do this. It's shocking that Congress lets this scam go on year after year after year. It is time to outlaw mandatory arbitration and to tell companies that when they cheat their customers, they may finally have to face some accountability in court. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Warren. The chair recognizes Senator Van Hollen remote if his camera's on. If not, Senator Smith from her office. If not, Senator Warnock from his.
I'm here, Mr. Chair, from my office. Thank you.
Senator Smith from Minnesota.